What is good, but Booskies? All right, so I wanted to give a shout out to I think it's like She Wolf Trader on Instagram. I just recently started following her. I want to say it hasn't even been 30 days, um, but she just crossed over 10,000 followers. Um, but one of the things that I like about her is she just keeps her trading journal, like her experience is very raw, and it really, it's an amazing experience, not just trading and trading live, but vocalizing it and also content creating side of it. But it was just that little push I needed for um, just the growth that comes with it. And I do have a vision for how these journals. That's my little Bruno. He's so fussy. He's so fussy. So tonight he has been the past couple of nights, but um, just in terms of embracing the growth that comes with it, I recommend that everyone does some type of post market analysis. I like that the content creator side of it holds me accountable. And sometimes, you do want to just, I think, like in today's scenario, lick my wounds in the shadows. But I think that part of journaling these for me, I'm going to try to keep it short, sweet, and to the point for people who are coming behind me. I know that the trajectory, there's nowhere to go but up, right? So I know there's going to be traders out there that are on their journey that will be able to identify with some of the mistakes that I made and kind of understand the thought process that goes into trading. So today is the day after Christmas. Just talking through some of the feelings, like I will say in the aftermath, what was I at some point. So I took two red trades, and it's just really tapping into, I think, a little bit of FOMO, and also um, learning to respect the the reason I have the indicators on there, right? I think that I do have a really good setup. Over the times that I've been trading, yeah, you don't want to have too many indicators on there, but what I have found, and I think especially with IWM, there are so many key players that come in at these critical levels, and part, uh, I don't know, between the levels of annoyance, the one that pissed me off, I think, the most was my second trade. You guys can go back and watch it, but it was, I think the second one came up at 8:15. We had this internal breakout right here, which is part of my A plus strategy, which I'll just kind of like start from the back and then go, start from the second trade and then go back to the first one. Because I think in between the two trades I took today, I'm aggravated, but I think this is a great opportunity for me to tighten up and again, just trying to hold myself accountable. And I've noticed that if I talk it out and document it, yeah, we're not repeating these mistakes again. So it's like residual mistakes and stuff that come with the trading journey. But yeah, we had this internal breakout. So notice that, right? This is like one of the first things I look for in my trading setup, right? That's part of my rules. I've kind of just left everything else to the wayside. So it went off, but notice that I marked where my entry level is. But um and that was for an entry to the downside. Now, mind you, this had already formed. So not only did I remember when this came up, I said, well, you guys, this is just on here. There's a little bit of liquidity, but I don't really trade it. So this level was already here, if I'm not mistaken, but there was already a green level down here. And sure enough, I got in, and that thing said doo 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 doo. And you know, I'm a big proponent of like exercise. It really helps with giving me clarity. I think through my trades as I'm walking. Man, he's like really fussy tonight. Let me see if I can kind of hush him down just a little bit. Sometimes you'll hear him make uh, you'll hear him make his presence known, but tonight he's just really on one. So, you can see that it's like we didn't have very much room to grow. And I think as I was walking and just giving myself some clarity, it's kind of like, no, babe, you have that on there because it serves a purpose. It's not the internal breakout that you trade, but it still has significance. It's there for a reason. And you can see, you know, not only did it respect this one here almost to the T, um, you can see, like here, same thing too, because usually this is a lagging indicator, this green one right here. So same way like how we have this internal breakout, the indicator didn't pop up until like maybe like 7 candles out. So same thing here. It's usually not gonna come up until like somewhere around here. So, or I think like even here. So it would, come up here and then we have a drawdown, come back into the area and then move to the upside. So that was really aggravating, and it was on, I feel like, of course, in hindsight, it just was so, you know, it happened, um, and it was unnecessary. Then moving back to my first trade, as I tapped into my feelings, like even my gut sensation, I remember like feeling like, oh my God, I missed the trade. Maybe it's going to, because I think I got in like way, way down here. Kid you not, I want to say, oh yeah, I got in right here. Because I figured I was, now mind you, this is like, what, kid you not, got in right here, 7:15. So I had been holding for almost 45 minutes. And what made me want to jump in was this right here. My little Bruno, y'all. I don't even, hold on, let me see if I can calm him down a little bit. I have no idea. And I just put him to bed too, so it's not. Okay, so I had seen this come, and I'm kind of talking the trade like in reverse because I took the trade like right here, and my rationale was okay, we made it from this level to here, and we're getting ready to break below here. But the candle that made me jump in was this one right here. I said I was waiting for a pullback, and actually, you know what? It does kind of make sense because that is so interesting. I waited for the pullback. I like how it reacted to this fast DMA, and then price did open here, and it came down. And I think once it started to come down here, I said, okay, we're gonna probably have a little bit of a pullback, which I anticipated a little bit of a pullback because this is a pivot level. I have since changed the pivot levels to green because I noticed I really do really good with color psychology. So I put it as bounce levels, right? So here you see support level bounce, support level a little bit of bounce. So just to kind of like give myself as many like visual aids, right? And I remember kind of feeling like this is a 1 day bullish order block. And I figured, okay, since we already came down here, IWM likes to go to 50% of the order block. And I remember we looked at the 1 day, and the 50% level was down here, like close to this 5 minute aqua take profit level. Well, so I figured like if we came below here, now mind you, I can already spot the mistake too because you don't really want to trade into levels. And I kind of remember like that little whisper in my mind type of a thing, but you want to wait for retest. So I would have had to wait for price to break down here, retest, and then try to write it to down here. But I didn't do that. So when candle closed, we come up here. I held on longer, and I didn't like the trade on this one wasn't that bad. I got us out at a small loss. I knew that my exit was gonna be if we and this is why like I'm so glad I wrote out my like I've done it several times, but I recently wrote out my trading setup, and I will have it in a PDF bit available for people who want to continue following the channel and want to trade, alongside with me and just want to have a checklist themselves to just like start training their mental. I would say even though I send the PDF, like write it out or write it out like almost every day. There's just something about it too. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold on because at this point price opened below here too. And then we started a downward movement again. And then it came up. And as soon as it opened here, I jumped out. I was starting to feel like a little bit kind of testy, like, oh my goodness, did I get faked out? But no, that was a good move. It was a very small loss there. So then moving backwards, and I felt a little salty too. I'm not gonna lie. Like when I was on social media, like people were like, "Oh, we made blah blah like 1900 off puts." If you all know, some of my favorites, I've already mentioned them on, my favorite people on Instagram. And but I remember saying that I don't see my setup. And what was frustrating for me is like I knew it was a move, and I felt like I knew I would see those posts where people were like, "Oh, we got da da da." But the truth of the matter is, it didn't give me what I needed. And so I think by the time this already came up, 7:15, I was kind of a little bit FOMO-ish too at this point because I felt like I remember looking at the time. Oh no, 8:15, right? Because I marked off this level. Um, let's see. I marked off this level. Um, and I remember looking at the price. I mean, at the time, and it was 8:15. And ideally, we'd like to be out of our trade by 8:30. This one I held a little bit longer because in my mind we had um, a higher time frame breakout. So we had just had a 1 hour bearish order block that came up at 8 o'clock, and I wasn't really paying attention to it. But when this came up at 8:15, I was like, okay, well that kind of makes sense towards a downtrend, right? And but I remember thinking like, is it gonna have enough time to play out? Up until 8:30, and then I did have signs to hold to get out, but at that point, I think I was just trying to hold on, because I felt like the higher time frames were coming to play. But again, I was ignoring that literally we had this, and I remember saying like, "Oh, I just have it on here." No, babe, you have it on there for a reason. It serves a purpose. It is liquidity, right? So those are my two trades. Um, I just have to learn to be patient. And I think this was one of those days, like, I know there's days where, so here's the thing. On the 1 hour, I took a screenshot. If you go to my Instagram on that today's date, and I actually said no trades today because on the 1 hour, um, we were opening in this, right? I think there was like two overlapping. And I said, this is not going to be a good day to trade. There's going to be too much liquidity. So felt frustrated when I felt what I saw was a trend forming. Oh my gosh, my yeah. All right, let me try to finish recording this because I'm at 15 minutes and let's just like try to keep this short. So um I do remember kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, and then what if I had had people following and you know they're gonna see this big move and I just didn't, and we did have a fair value gap here, but and another thing that happened was right before the market opened at 626, the internal breakout um, kind of flashed a little bit. And I remember like somewhere around here, I was just like, oh, did I miss it? It was very much FOMO-ish, but I think that part of the reason I didn't want to jump in is because in the past I have gotten faked out before. And so I think it's just I just need to stick to my rules, hard pressed rule of like if the 1 hour is showing liquidity, we stick to that. And I accept and acknowledge that the people who did make profit off of this coming down, I can try to back test it and reverse engineer it. But honestly, the way that my trading style, I don't see, and I don't think it would be wise for me to try to take a trade off of something that flickers. And then the other thing too is it didn't stay. Usually I like to make sure the candle is closed and the indicator is still there for me to take a down trade, and it didn't happen. In fact, price shot up and invalidated that internal breakout, um, and then went to the downside. And so, you know, other people caught it, and that's fine. Um, I would say maybe like a clue would be like right here. And mind you, it was moving really quickly. So we skyrocketed up and then we rejected really badly. But there was a pivot level here. And so I think, if you have a fair value, which is probably what I should have had down here when I got in here, just a little bit more confluence, right? Instead of um, jumping in and there's nothing set up to the downside. Um, Kind of what would have given people confluence to hold on is this fair value gap under the pivot. I'm not saying it's strong enough for you to be like, oh, look, fair value gap under a pivot point, take entry. But like if I had seen the internal breakout and then this, I'd have felt a little bit more confidence with it. But yeah, I'm saying that because if you're kind of like me, I don't want you to hear like, oh, well, she said if there's a fair value gap under a pivot, no, that's confluence. Like that's just adding to the sauce of like maybe something else that you need to be like give you a little bit more strength. But standalone, a fair value gap under a pivot is not, I don't think. And we can document it. Like I'm really good at noticing patterns and stuff like that. But I think that's where, we can kind of explore what that means, but I don't think it's standalone on its own strong enough to, and it was just moving so fast. It was so volatile. I will also say as we're moving backwards to what happened in the day, I did have, if anything, I had bullish um, bias because in my mind, let me see here. Yeah, because so we opened here, we opened here. We had a couple of take profit zones here, but to me, look at this. I don't know. Like I kind of felt like it had a little bit more of a bounce off of this 1 day bullish order block. So, and we did risk it a little bit too because usually they say like the last 2 weeks of December are a little bit rough. So I don't really want to put too many limiting beliefs. I think it's just as long as you stick to your rules, if the setup is there, then the setup is there. But it just so happens on the 26th, my setup didn't play out. I think for other people it did. And that just is just something that's going to have to come with experience where, you can recognize the setup. But like I said, the setup that I look for did not play out. Um, Let me see here. Whew. As long as I've been like podcasting and stuff like that, I've never had Bruno this fussy. So I'm gonna go check on him. But let me see here. Was there anything else? So those were my two trades. Took one here. Next time we just need to wait for minimum fair value gap. Still need to stick to internal breakouts, and then just respect. Like respect. I did a lot. I went through a lot to curate this setup that I have. It can seem busy at times, but it's on here for a reason. And I feel like I put in so much work leading up into this, and I studied it before I even put it on here, because sometimes I'll put it on, take it off, I'll have it on two different panels. And it's days like this where I'm reminded, like, no, you had that on there for a reason, because when this pops up, even though you don't trade it to the upside, it's telling you something, especially on the higher time frames. Like if I see this, I'm like, nope, nope, liquidity, liquidity, right? But I could have saved myself from this one. I really could have. And so that being said, I did work on my Discord um, over like the past couple of days because I've been on vacation, but I decided to switch it to a wait list for now because I just need to get a little bit stronger on some things on my end. But if you would like to trade with me live, at some point I'm gonna switch over from doing like the daily recordings on YouTube, and I'm gonna switch over to where, yeah, like this will still be live streamed, and but the voice part will be on Discord. And I did set it up, but the thing is, I have to now figure out, like, over the next couple days, how to record on my trade on my Discord, um, and make sure, I'm not sure if I'll be able to connect the visual as well onto Discord. I will always stream on YouTube. This it's just I won't be, at some point I'm gonna have a Discord trading community where only members can hear my voice and hear me take my trades. And so, it's a humble day. Um, but one of the things that I absolutely love where I can see the growth is I only took two trades. Um, and for the most part they were small losses, especially this first one, and it really took out a lot of the stress I had of, like, oh my goodness, it's moving really quickly. Okay, I was like, worst case scenario, if you made a mistake, just get out when it opens above the fasting main. You can see that was a really good move there. But I think some of the other things that I knew, I just need to stick to my rules, and that is higher time frame 1 hour was liquidity, point blank period. Number two, um, I did not have an internal breakout. So why are you getting it over here when you didn't even get another internal breakout to the downside? Here is another thing. And then if you're going to do that, at least make sure there's maybe a fair value gap under here. But it wasn't even the best setup either, because at the time there wasn't even an order block that had formed either. So that was not within my rules. And then the second thing is, yes, we did have this internal breakout, but you got to follow context. And you have these things on here for a reason, and you need to respect it, right? On the higher time frames and on the lower time frames, and that could save you some money. And then the other thing that probably kind of came into effect too is if that's coming up here, you know, it was not maybe like it wasn't the best setup, but I don't know if there will be in the future days where this pops up at um, 8:15 and you have that last hurrah where you drop another 1 to 1, um, in those last 15 minutes or whatever. So, but yeah, so I for sure will not be training that last week in December. It is a little bit rough because the temptation is there just because I'm live streaming and I'm in bed and I don't have to go to work, and so I'm sitting there and stuff like that too. So I just want to, it's just going to be that last couple of days where it's like, how much have you grown? How much can you trust yourself? How much can you stick to your rules and your plan? Um, you know, and yeah, this is just all a part of the game. Oh, now he's quiet. Now he's quiet. I don't know. what is going on? But yeah. Is there anything else? So for my trading community, I feel like I'm a little bit different. I do like to focus on things that have to do with mind, body, and soul. I do like the idea of focusing also on like the health component that goes into it. You hear me reference like how I go for walks. I've gone anywhere from, I increased it from 10,000 steps to 12,000 steps. But now that I'm on vacation, I will do like up to 30,000 steps. But I think it's just so funny how much I started doing it and I fell in love with it, and it really matches my personality because it allows me to like keep playing over in my mind the trade. So you better believe, let me see how many steps I did today. Out of my 20,000 steps, I did like 6,000 this morning. So the rest of the 14,000 before the market opened, I still woke up at 4 o'clock, took my shower, everything that comes with getting ready, made my smoothies, and everything that I do normally before I go to work. But um, which has helped me a lot too. To just kind of like get the blood going to my brain and helps me feel like I've accomplished some stuff. But it's really good for my trading too. Helps me, like I would say, get all the jitters out and to be calmer by the time I come in to trade and stuff. But the and then yeah, you better believe those last 14,000 steps. I just kept replaying this over in my mind. You know, we're not gonna get in at pivot points. We're not doing that. This is the second time this has happened this week. Um, pivot points are gone here too. But it's such an interesting experience too because it happens and kind of watching yourself from like an outer body experience. But yeah. All right, you guys. So, oh yeah, so my Discord, we will be talking about health, fitness, and stuff like that, like supplements I take for brain health, recovery, stuff like that too. But I'll try to keep them separate from the trading part. But those all play a different role, and I'll have different playlists, so you won't ever have to worry about like hearing that stuff on here. I think even though all of this happened, like it was still fascinating to watch how the consolidation started to play out. I think another thing that was fascinating for me too was yes, we have lagging indicators, um, but this, like I said, is liquidity. Um, and what was so interesting is before this popped up, because remember this is lagging, but this had already popped up. But I remember when I was in here, I was explaining to you guys, I'm like, yeah, we're waking up, we're above here. And I'm like, people are getting chopped and screwed. You know, you make this move up and then get wiped down, wiped out. No, it was over here and stuff. And then sure enough, the liquidity thing came up. I'm like, okay, I'm getting the hang of it. I'm starting to understand how to identify it before the lagging indicator comes up. Um, And then the other thing that was kind of cool too, like just from experience, is I told you guys by 8:30 we need to be out of the trade. Um, and so you can see here just confirmation again from what I've been telling you. The candles are smaller, and we just never really broke out of that range and got the move that we really needed to. So there's that. All right, thanks for your patience. I will catch you guys on Monday. I will be live streaming, but let's just focus on, I think, like I've said, I've been saying for this week, the greats don't trade those last few days of the market, and I don't think we should either. I think at this point it's just going to be a matter of keeping my word. I am curious to see what's happening, but I think maybe what I'll do is I'll just keep like not log into my Robinhood account, and I wouldn't say I'd get like eggnog or hot chocolate, but I'm just gonna cozy up in bed, watch it. We're gonna live stream it, and I'm pretty sure that we can still learn something for next year. Like I said, I'm a little befuddled as to how I could have caught this move, but it wasn't part of my setup, and it just is what it is. And I need to respect that when it happens again. All right, you guys, my little Jabarkis, Bruno Quantavius. When he's bad, he's Bruno Quantavius barking. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.